Well, we were motoring directly into the wind, and all of a sudden the engine died. We're adrift right now. We are definitely not going to the Bahamas.
Today we don't know what the future holds. We're kind of playing it day by day. What we know right now is that tomorrow we're going to head south once again from Key Largo area down to Marathon. And we'll go from there.
So because of the engine failure, we didn't really get to choose where we anchored up. We were dead into the wind. It was 4 o'clock in the morning. So when the engine stopped, we kind of just came to a shallow spot and dropped anchor. That's lots of fetch and lots of waves getting blown right into us. So it's been rolly. Truthfully, I think Misha and I were both too exhausted to not sleep, so we did all right. We had our emotional pity party. Our broken motor pity party. We decided to sell the boat. And then we decided to go back to Marathon and figure out if we can fix the boat. And then we decided, screw that. What's the name of our channel?
For love of wind.
For love of wind, not for love of diesel. We're gonna try and sail off anchor. We'll see how that works out.
We realized that this boat was made for sailing, and so we should just go ahead and sail.
Sails are out, tails are doing good. We were anchored right there. So we were anchored right over there somewhere. We put up the sails, pulled up the anchor, and we are headed to the Bahamas sans engine.
We're Bahamas bound, baby!
For the third time!
Third time! Third time's the charm.
There you go.
Everybody send positive vibes our way.
Next stop, Bahamas. All right, I just finished my shift, first full shift of our second attempt at going to the Bahamas. Misha did an hour and a half, and then I took over at 6. We started at 4:30. Water's been pretty flat, but we were having, there's a barrier reef all along the Keys, and we had to kind of snake through that in very light winds. It was like 1.5 to 2 knots, barely enough to control the helm, so a little crazy. We are now coming through the barrier reef. The water is still very flat, but the offshore swells are coming in, and so it's smooth, and then you get 3 or 4 like big speed bumps in the way. But Misha already had dinner and took the dogs out on the bow when the water was really flat inside the barrier reef, and now that we're outside, I'm gonna eat and take a quick nap and let Misha do her thing.
It is midnight and I've just come off my shift, and it was pretty uneventful. The wind has thankfully picked up a little bit, and so we're making pretty good time. I think at the end there I was averaging right around 4 knots, which is a little bit better than we thought we would get at this time of night, actually. I think the wind is supposed to die down later on though, so we'll see how that goes. It's a little surreal to look around and not see the lights from the town anywhere. That's a new one on me. But it's pretty cool. It means we're on our way.
Okay, well, once again we have met with a challenging set of circumstances. The wind is out of 135, and once we hit the Gulfstream, as you can see here, we were just blowing straight north. The closest heading we could get was about a 070, and at that heading, we weren't making any progress crossing. We were just getting blown north. We tried tacking south, but the only heading we could get to reasonably that direction was about 080. And at that point, we were literally just like holding position. We don't have a motor, so we can't augment. So with the winds at 135, we're not going to be able to cross at this angle. So we are headed into Key Biscayne. We've turned around and we're headed into Key Biscayne to wait for some winds that are either more southerly or westerly. Anything but 135, which as you can see is like the only horrible heading for us. Hey everybody, we're back. So yeah, last week, engine failure. It totally stopped on us and had no oil. Went into an anchorage, stayed there, just a day, really. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, we arrived Thursday morning at like 4 a.m. We sat there all day Friday, very distraught. I guess that would be the correct term.
Yeah, trying to figure out what to do next.
And then Friday night, we were like, you know what? We're sailing anyway. So, yeah, we hit it. Videos keep coming to you from these amazing people. There are League of Mariners, our patrons. They support us directly on patreon.com/forloveofwind. Yeah, they give us moral support, inspirational support, advice, and they do help fund the project. So
sometimes they even send us alcohol.
Which is amazing. So thanks to all of them. They really are what keeps us going. And to all of you guys, please like and subscribe. We love the community that we have formed here on YouTube, and we want to grow it. So if you don't know, there is a very fast river of ocean water that blows all the way to England, right? One of the reasons why England, which is so far north, is much warmer than places like North Dakota, is because there is a belt of warm water that goes from the Caribbean up to England. The area right around Florida, it's called the Gulfstream,
and it has varying speeds of current. When we went to cross, it was blowing or flowing. It was flowing at 3 knots, which is insanely fast.
It's pretty fast. It does fluctuate from time to time, but every time we've tried to cross so far, it's been pretty fast. It's been right around 3 knots. But 3 knots, even though that doesn't sound very fast, when it's pushing you north and you don't have much wind and don't have much engine, you don't get very far.
We found that to be probably the single biggest challenge to our trip across to the Bahamas.
Definitely, yes. We spent most of our time because the Gulfstream, at the time that we crossed, the Gulfstream was almost the width from the Florida coast to the Bahamas.
Right. It was quite literally as wide as our trip. I mean, the center portion was 3 knots, but even on the edges, 2 knots, 1.9 knots. So it went from shore to shore. So that's the Gulfstream, and it is a force of nature. All right, so our first attempt at getting across that Gulfstream, the winds were just so wrong, and we couldn't make any progress. So we did just tuck into Key Biscayne, which is No Name Harbor. It's famous for the jumping off place for Bimini. It's only like 49 miles from Key Biscayne to Bimini, to Alice Town in Bimini. So we were there for what, 2 days?
2 days, I think. Yeah.
2 days, which was good. We got some time to work. We did some work. We watched the weather really, really closely, and we found a weather window.
Yeah, thankfully we didn't have to wait that long.
Yep.
But yeah, that first trip out, and it was kind of a bummer because we actually made it, what would you say, probably 7 or 8 miles offshore?
Oh, no, much farther than that. Our first trip out, we were probably 12, 15 miles offshore. We lost cell phone.
We did lose cell coverage, yeah, and we could just barely see the Miami skyline. So yeah, we were well offshore, but it just wasn't working for us, so we had to turn around and come back. So that was a long trip and fruitless. But yeah, we waited it out a couple of days in Key Biscayne, and we got our weather window, and we were able to head out again.
Of course, right when it was time for us to leave, big storm.
Okay. What's going on?
Oh, there are people out there sailing. So we were supposed to leave right now to head out to cross to Bimini, and a pretty major thunderstorm has developed. It wasn't, that was cloud to ground lightning. It was not forecast as of this morning, but it has popped up. So now we have the issue of whether to try and boot scoot it out and risk getting caught in the storm, which we probably will, or wait another possibly 3 or 4 days because we won't have another weather window to leave for at least several days.
Part of the problem is since we are not able to motor, if we don't leave in the next 4 or 5 hours, when we get about 3/4 of the way across to the Bahamas, the wind will die down to about 3 or 4 knots. And that becomes very difficult to fight current. I mean, you can't do much with that. 3 or 4 knots without motor, you're not going to get very far very fast. So we're on a pseudo time crunch right now. If we left right now, we could make it there based on all of the model's winds. Well, based on 6 of 8 of the model winds, if we left right now, we could make it there with about a 4-hour delay of wind. If we don't leave for 4 hours because of this big thunderstorm, then we have the potential, if we don't do the speed we expect to do, to get caught offshore in basically dead air in the Gulfstream, which would just blow us north as fast as possible. So you can see and hear this storm. And it's only supposed to grow and get bigger along our path. Of course, after today, the winds either die down completely or are blowing the wrong direction until like Saturday or Sunday. Which means go now in the storm or wait another 3 or 4 days. It's supposed to, yeah, according to the future radar, it's supposed to grow towards us.
Okay.
We're never getting to the Bahamas. We're never going to get to the Bahamas.
Well, let's give it a couple of hours and see what it does. Maybe it'll fizzle off pretty quickly.
Here's hoping.
Glad we did not leave yet.
Hang on, I'm gonna turn on the Wednesday instruments.
Okay.
I did turn off the anchor alarm.
You might need it.
Or let's get that from the...
Oh yeah.
Here. So the winds just went from 10 knots to like 30 knots in the blink of an eye. Our original plan was to be about 30 minutes into our trip. Just over there. That would have been exciting. Yeah, it's getting chilly. Like,
You want me to get you a hoodie?
no, that's okay.
I'm putting one on 'cause, yeah. It's getting cold.
Yeah. The little thermometers are poking.
That's why if we don't leave today, I'm drinking.
Oh, yes. Definitely drinking. We might just forego dinner and consume alcoholic calories.
Starting right away. There are people on the pier down there.
The storm is like my cologne. It comes on strong and gets you all wet.
No. Someone save me! Somebody save me!
Okay, so itty bitty rainbow. I feel like that's good luck.
I hope so. because we're due for some good luck. Well, we decided to give it a go. The storm's cleared up, and right now we're looking at maybe some rain clouds in the distance, but nothing looks overly concerning. So the winds are very still. Right now we're looking at just over 2 knots. We're gonna see what they're doing offshore, because they're supposed to pick up a little bit. But if they don't, we may be coming back in. We'll see. We'll give it an hour or so.
All right, so I'm sure some of you are actually yelling at the screen about how we definitely should not be going to the Bahamas without an engine. Let's talk about our engine real fast. When she quit, it was a safety feature that shut it down. She had burned all of her oil out, leaked a little bit of it into the bilge. Thankfully, there was a little water in the bilge, so when I looked down there initially, it looked like a lot of oil, but it was a thin sheen of oil floating on top of the water, which we scooped out most of that. The engine does run. And it actually, at around idle, up to about 1,000 RPM, holds oil pressure. There's like a slow drip into the bilge still that I suspect is coming from the turbo. We have a turbocharged Volvo diesel. And there is a little bit of blue smoke in the exhaust. Also, I suspect coming from the turbo. It's a turbo bearing seal that I assume has gone bad and is leaking at that point. We had a Power Stroke Ford with a leaking turbo as well. It was blow oil all over the engine compartment. So when we spun it up. So that is my suspicion. So I don't know if you can tell, there is just a hint of blue smoke coming out of our exhaust, very light, and you can smell on top of diesel exhaust, a little bit of burnt oil in there. I think, it will take literally hours and hours to burn out our oil, which we do not want to do. So we run at real low RPM for, an hour or two at a time when we have to. That's like to get out of an anchorage, or if we need to get into a slip or something like that. So we still technically have internal combustion auxiliary motor, but it is not something that we can use for travel. It is not something that we can use for long distances. It's basically an auxiliary motor. It's used for emergencies and when we need to navigate into and out of stuff where we can't just be tacking back and forth over the course of a football field. So, is what it is. Stinks. It will probably require at least a new turbo if it's the turbo bearing seals that I suspect it is, but maybe rings. I don't know. I don't know enough about diesel internal combustion I know how they work, but I don't know what would cause the smokiness. So TBD. So it's about 8:40 in the evening. About 20 minutes ago, we picked up a breeze. Like it went from like nothing. It went from like 3 knots out of 180 to what, 7.5 or 8 knots out of 350. We just finished looking at all 8 models on PredictWind. None of them have winds out of the north. And right now the boat's at a heading of 120. And yeah, that's actually helping keep us, the winds out of the north are actually helping keep us going against the current. So this has worked out really, really well, but none of the models said that we were gonna get a north breeze. So we'll see how long this holds, but so far so good.
All right, Misha is taking shift. I'm just coming off the 3 a.m. to 6 a.m. shift. We're now 7 hours without wind. I mean, I say that. About halfway through shift, there was about a 30-minute window in there where we were starting to see like 4 knots, 5 knots, but it was short-lived. We are about halfway across the Gulfstream now. So we've been blown heavily north, but now that we're past the middle of the Gulfstream, the current will slowly reduce as we get farther east, and we should be able to then start turning more and more south towards Bimini, since we are now north of Bimini. All right, we went from, in the course of like 5 minutes, we went from 0 wind with all the sail out to 18, 19 knots. It looks like there's a squall up ahead. Are you fighting it?
A little bit, yeah. I'm holding 130, but yeah, it's fighting me a little bit.
Okay, I think I'm gonna pull the jib in a little bit now. And slow us down, which is the last thing we want to do, but if it's going to be a squall that's going to be gusting, we don't need any of that. So I'm going to pull it in, we'll come back. Nope. Definitely not. So we are both very, very frustrated right now. I don't think Misha even wants to be on camera. She's so frustrated. If we can get out of this horrible, horrible current that the Gulfstream is throwing at us, we could actually make a lot more progress. Yeah, we've been in this current for 18 hours now. We haven't had any wind to get across it. We don't have a motor to get across it. We've been at the will of this current. And it just keeps blowing us the opposite direction we want to go. So, or it just keeps blowing us north and the winds were wrong. So right now we're doing 150 with 12 knot winds. That is moving us towards Bimini. It's moving us towards Bimini at 1.5 knots because the current is fighting us. But we should be getting out of this current in the next like 3 hours. And then we could even pick up like a 180 with these winds and slide into Bimini pretty easily. We shall see. Right now, just getting across the Gulfstream has been the wall, the barrier for us. It's like a water version of the Great Wall of China. I'm sure not everybody has this problem. Lots of people go to the Bahamas. But in our situation, getting across that current has been the most difficult task for us. Would you say that's accurate?
I would say that's accurate. We actually have some friends that just skimmed right across the Gulfstream and made it straight to Bimini from Marathon and didn't have any issues with it.
They didn't even know it was a thing.
And here we are looking at another 10 hours or so until we make it to Bimini if the winds work in our favor.
Right, so if the winds don't change for 10 hours, we'll be fine. If we can get out of this Gulfstream, we'll be fine. The Gulfstream is blowing at 3 knots, according to the forecast. So it doesn't matter how fast you're crossing it, you're going 3 knots north. It's ridiculous. Oh no, the yacht's about to get hit. Whew, it was in the background. It's a very large boat and it is going very fast. There's another one up there too.
So the purple dot, the end of the purple dot there, is that West End or what?
Yep, that's you don't even have to zoom. It's like,
oh, nice.
That's it. That is our journey.
You said 065?
Yeah, that's perfect.
Okay.
The red line won't show us pointing there right now, but as we round that 1640 point, the current should start pushing us that way, and we might have to turn in, but 065 is best for the winds.
Okay. Great.
All right, so I'm just coming off the 9 to noon shift. Yeah, that means officially we've been doing this 47-mile journey for, what are we up to now? 18 hours? Yeah, right at 18 hours. 47 miles, 18 hours. Oh, and we're not there. So here's the complete synopsis so far. When we left Key Biscayne, the winds were supposed to pick up after a couple of hours, which they did, but they picked up out of the north instead of the south. That actually worked really well for us. We sailed for several hours. At around 11 o'clock, we just lost all wind. It was gone. 11 o'clock at night. At that point, we were fully in the Gulfstream. It was pushing 3 knots north. That we thought we'd pick up some wind after 1. That was the forecast. We did not pick up any wind till 6. At that point, we were north of Bimini and only halfway across the Gulfstream. So we did get some wind at 6. In fact, we ran into a squall and had to reef in briefly, which we have shaken out since. So we were headed north of Bimini, and at that point it was like, well, it's Freeport or Bimini, 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. However, when we first left for the Bahamas back in 2023, our original plan was to go to West End. West End is only 30 miles from us right now, and so we have the sails out doing about 4.5 knots, mostly because of current. Headed into West End. We know that area. We haven't been there before, but we've, because of last year's intention of going there, have scouted it heavily, have talked to people who have been there. So in about 4 or 5 hours, if we can maintain, no, let's see, in about 9 hours, if we can maintain the 4 knots we're doing, we will be there. It'll be dark, but that's okay. There's some decent anchorages in West End. We will we'll drop the hook for the night, and then tomorrow I'll go in and clear us into the Bahamas. Misha's on shift now. She had a little nap. She fed the dogs. She's been helping with lines. Yeah, we're the only people ever who took a 47-mile trip and made it 90 miles. Such is flow. Woohoo! So, I took over it at 3 o'clock. At like 3:30, we had a wind shift. Very slow. We were only able to hold like 040, which was just barely getting us out of the Gulfstream. Just barely getting us towards West End. Not at it, but kind of in the general vicinity. We were having to tack and tack and tack just to stay on course. And then about 3:30, winds shifted out of 160, about 15 knots. We've seen upwards of 17, 18, 19, almost 20. I think we did see a 20 briefly. We pulled in a little jib for that. But at 160, we can sail at 075. We are headed straight into West End, hitting 7 knots on the beam reach and 15 knots of wind. Oh man, I thought we could go water skiing behind the boat. We're leaning pretty good, but yeah, what do you think?
Man, this is what we've been waiting for this whole time, and we're finally getting it. And we will enjoy it while it lasts. But I think that's pretty much it.
So yeah, only 22 hours into this sail, and about 90 miles of the 47-mile trip that we needed to take. We're finally just cooking along. Oh, we dropped speed now. We're doing like 5.5, but that's okay. We are 16 miles from West End. We are headed straight there. We're not headed near it. We're not tacking back and forth. Straight there. And I've got about 30 minutes left on my shift now. Misha should be taking over for the last 3, and if we maintain 5 plus, which we've been doing lots of 6s, a little bit of 7. Now we're down to 5s. I think the sun's getting ready to set, but if we can maintain 5.5 or 6 for her 3 hours, being 15 knots from 15 miles from shore, we'll be there by 9 p.m. Well, third time's the charm. We did it, guys.
We finally made it.
We were actually in the Bahamas. We got in last night about 10 o'clock after 28.5 hours.
Yes, a trip that was supposed to take, I think, 10 hours maybe, straight across to Bimini. Yeah, it took us 28, wait, how long was it?
28.5 hours.
28.5 hours and twice as many nautical miles as it was supposed to.
Yeah. We have that mad skill where we did 47 miles. We did it in like 93 miles.
There may be some people out there, I know, that can just skim gracefully right across the Gulfstream and have no problems, and that's not us. I think we were headed towards Bermuda. We're not very graceful sailors.
If you've made it this far, thank you so much. Please like and subscribe. Ring that notification bell so you can find out more of our adventures. If you want to know where we're at right now, go to patreon.com/forloveofwind. Those guys get where we've been, what we're doing, and where we're going all the time. Regular updates. They know where we're at. So we made it to the Bahamas.
We made it.
Woohoo!
It's only taken us 18 months.
And
I don't more dollars than I want to.
Than we have. But as the recording here, we are in the Bahamas. Next week, we're going to show you how to check in. We made it to West End. We'll show you what it takes to get into the Bahamas legally. So I guess that's it. We'll see you guys next week. Thanks. Bye.